So the story of the day that has the whole entire NFL world upside down, surprised and shocked, is the fact that the Carolina Panthers fired longtime head coach Ron Rivera. Head coach of the Carolina Panthers for 9 years, has a couple of divisional titles, a couple of playoff wins, a couple of playoff appearances, and a Super Bowl appearance. So Ron Rivera is going to be the head coach of an NFL team next season. I have a strong suspicion of that because he is a great head coach. But here's what happened with Ron Rivera. The Carolina Panthers had a change in ownership. And anytime you have a change in ownership, most of the time, that owner, if the team's not having a lot of success, that owner doesn't have a lot of patience. That owner wants to bring in his guy. The guy who he wants as head coach. Most owners who buy a new team, they don't want the guy who was the previous head coach for the previous owner. They want their guy. So when you look at Ron Rivera has had a couple of seasons that Carolina has not been in the playoffs. So going into when the new owner purchased that team back in 2018, Ron Rivera had pressure on him last season to get that team to the playoffs. He wasn't able to do that. Okay, now you can say Cam Newton got injured, a lot of injuries happened, blah, 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 blah. Okay, the ownership, they could have fired Ron Rivera after last season, but they didn't. They kept him 2019. This season, Ron Rivera had to win, and he had to get Carolina to the playoffs. And he wasn't able to do that. Currently, going into this week, they're on a 4-game losing streak. And they're pretty much out of playoff contention. No chance of him making it to the playoffs. Now, what a lot of Carolina Panthers fans need to understand is that with new ownership is less patient with the head coach that they didn't bring in. Now, if this new ownership, the new owner of the Carolina Panthers, hired Ron Rivera, then he would have been a lot more patient. But since the owner had a head coach that he didn't personally hire himself, he had less patience. Because most owners of new NFL teams that are struggling want to bring in their guy, the guy who they feel would be best suited as head coach for their organization and their team. They don't want the previous head coach. They want their head coach. So Ron Rivera didn't really have a lot of time. And the circumstances weren't quite in his favor. He lost Cam Newton. That was a big loss, okay? Kyle Allen obviously isn't the long-term quarterback for the Carolina Panthers going forward. So now, Ron Rivera was without Cam Newton. So new ownership is looking at him like, okay, you're considered a good coach, so find a way to game plan to win some games. And he was able to. Carolina at one point was one of the best teams in the NFL. Then they played the 49ers, and I think that's kind of when things started to go downhill after that 49ers game. They lost to the Packers. Now they're on a 4-game losing streak. So, I mean, Ron Rivera's time coming into this season for me, which is why this isn't a surprise fire to me, I thought this was a season that Ron Rivera had to win. And the reason why I didn't make a video about it earlier was because I didn't want a lot of backlash from the Carolina Panthers fans yet. Because I wanted to see what Ron Rivera was going to do. Now, I was thinking about making a video about Ron Rivera possibly being fired a couple of weeks ago, but I wanted to hold on to making that video. I wanted to save that video to the end of the season to see what things happen. Because I wasn't expecting Ron Rivera to get fired near at this point in the season. I thought Carolina's ownership would ride it out with him. But they're eliminated from playoff contention. So now, it's pretty much no reason Ron Rivera being there anymore now that they're out of playoff contention now in the owner's standpoint. Because now the owner wants to get his guy in there as quick as possible. Because here's what Carolina Panthers fans need to understand. Ron Rivera, with the new ownership, never really had a chance. Really. Now, if the previous owner was still there, then Ron Rivera still would be head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Because the previous owner would have been more patient because that was the guy that he hired. This new owner for the Carolina Panthers didn't hire Ron Rivera. Therefore, he didn't have as much patience for Ron Rivera. And that's most owners. And that's most general managers. Same thing for general managers. When a general manager gets hired to be GM of a team, that coach that he didn't hire himself doesn't have a lot of time. That's in sports, right? That's in life in general, right? So if you have a boss or if you have a boss and your boss is the new boss of a company and things like that, or a new CEO or whatever, the workers have to prove themselves. And if the workers don't prove themselves to that new boss or the new owner or the new CEO of the company, they get let go. They may be a good head coach or a good worker and things like that, but it didn't prove to that new owner that they were a good enough worker to work underneath that owner. And Ron Rivera didn't prove enough to the new owner of the Carolina Panthers that he was good enough to remain the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, and he was good enough to work under the new ownership of the Carolina Panthers. And that's what happens in sports. When you have a head coach like Ron Rivera that has been inconsistent, Ron Rivera has never registered back-to-back playoff appearances in all his years being head coach of the Carolina Panthers. That's something that Carolina Panthers fans haven't brought up. Yes, he's had a lot of success, but he hasn't had a lot of sustained success. And I'm not making this up. Ron Rivera has never had back-to-back playoff appearances, ever in his career. Every time they make the playoffs the year following, they miss out. You can go ahead, you can look it up. I promise you I'm not making this up. Ron Rivera, since he's been head coach of the Carolina Panthers, has never had back-to-back playoff seasons. So he's a good coach, but he's inconsistent. He's never been able to maintain the same amount of success for the Carolina Panthers season after season after season. Makes the playoffs one year, misses the playoffs the next year. Makes the playoffs the following year, misses the playoffs the next year. Went to the Super Bowl in 2015, missed the playoffs the following year. So he never has had that level of consistency. And that's why they call him Riverboat Ron. He's an ultimate gambler. He takes a lot of risk, a lot of aggressive chances, a lot of unnecessary risk sometimes. Pay it off, sometimes they backfire. But Ron Rivera is a good coach. Nobody can deny that. But under new ownership, the ownership felt Ron Rivera wasn't the guy. And when you have a new ownership, I know this sounds repetitive, but I want to prove this point home. When you have new ownership, they want their coach. They want to bring in their own guy. They don't want the previous owner's coach. They want their guy. So therefore, they want to get that other guy out. So although Cam Newton was injured, was a bunch of injuries and things like that, listen, the owner wasn't looking at that. He wanted to find a way to get Ron Rivera up out of there. He gave Ron Rivera his fair chance, and I agree. A lot of Carolina Panthers fans coming into this season were saying that this was a playoff team. Now, a lot of Carolina Panthers fans want to fire Ron Rivera and things like that. And now that's happening for some reason. Like they're like shocked and surprised. And they're saying that this is a dumb decision. But a couple of weeks ago, a lot of Carolina Panthers fans wanted to fire Ron Rivera. But now that he's actually gone, like, it's kind of crazy because now they want to backtrack and say, oh, like, they want to act all shocked. But I wasn't shocked. I had a strong suspicion going into the season that this potentially could be Ron Rivera's last season as the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Because of the new ownership. When you have a new owner, that owner is less patient than others. Now, the next question I want to knock out of the way is, why was Ron Rivera fired before Jason Garrett? Here's the reason why. Are the Carolina Panthers in playoff contention? No. Are the Dallas Cowboys in playoff contention? Yes, they are. You don't fire a coach when you're in the middle of trying to make it into the playoffs. Until the Dallas Cowboys, which the Dallas Cowboys probably won't, consider the Philadelphia Eagles just lost to the Miami Dolphins. But the Dallas Cowboys right now are in the playoffs. They are the 4th seed right now. I think they are a game ahead of Philadelphia, because Philadelphia just lost to the Miami Dolphins. So I still think they are a game ahead of the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Jason Garrett isn't getting fired. His contract is just going to run out. Unless Dallas folds the last couple of games they have left and lose the rest of those games, then Jason Garrett probably gets fired week 17. But really, Jason Garrett probably isn't going to get fired. His contract is just going to run out. Because this is the last year of his contract. So the contract is just going to expire. But the thing is, you don't fire a coach when your team is in the middle of a playoff push. You don't fire your head coach until you're officially eliminated from playoff contention. That's what happened with the Carolina Panthers. They have no chance of making it to the playoffs, which is why they decided to part ways with Ron Rivera. So that's the reason why Jason Garrett still has his job and Ron Rivera doesn't have his job. The Carolina Panthers are competing for the playoffs. The Dallas Cowboys are. Number one rule in football when it comes to coaching changes and coaching firings, you never fire a head coach that's in the middle of competing for the playoffs. Doesn't matter how bad of a coach They may be. If a team's in the playoff race, you don't fire them. That's football 101. I don't think I need to explain the implications. If you fire a head coach in the middle of the playoff push, then you have to bring in an intern or something like that, and just messes up team morale, team chemistry, and all that crap. I don't really think I need to get into depth of why you don't fire a head coach in the middle of playoff contention. So this is my reasoning and my thoughts on why the Carolina Panthers fired Ron Rivera. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comment section down below. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos and college football videos. And thanks for watching.